Hi guys, and welcome back to Redfern University. I want to talk about something that, it's going to be a bit controversial, but hey, I'm trying to be nice, no one's listening. Three things, there's a lot more than three, but we'll talk about three things today. Three things that your coach might say that proves either they're lying, or they're an idiot, or they're both. So this is the sort of question you should be able to ask and get a logical answer. So far I haven't found anyone that has a logical answer. And one of them is, we don't go to the ground, we're a stand-up style. Now, if you're talking about boxing, I get it, set within parameters. It's a big money sport, it's a particular discipline. Then if you look at Muay Thai, it's out there proving itself every day in the ring. I get it. They've still got dirty boxing, great clinching skills, knees, elbows, stuff like that. But that they work inside of certain parameters, and I respect that because they train hard. But then you get into martial arts across the board, and the argument keeps coming up, we don't go to the ground, we can't be taken to the ground. I call bullshit on that straight away, because like I've said before, it's not always your choice. So when an instructor says something like that, it tells me that that person has no skills on the ground, has no takedown skills perhaps, but definitely no ground skills, because if they've never been there, how would they know? And so I call bullshit on that, and you guys need to snap out of it and stop lying to your students. And you guys need to find a mat where the culture is real and that you're able to ask those questions and get logical answers. When I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 20 years ago, it was a humbling experience. I had to take my red belt off, start as a white belt. I asked for no favors, didn't expect any, got none, and was getting smashed by white belts with 10 hours more practice than me, literally from day one. But eventually the tide turns, and you start to find game, and you start to develop as a BJJ exponent, and things become a lot more fun. Well, it's fun anyway, but you know what I'm getting at. So if your instructor says we don't go to the ground, we're a stand-up style, you need to ask why. If we are supposed to be a system that's kind of encompassing all disciplines, or at least problem solving, because on the street, if the discipline is supposed to have a self-defense street kind of combat component, then they need to be able to answer that question, and most of them won't be able to. Most of them will just say, shut up, don't ask any questions, this is the way it is. Oh, we don't want to break from tradition. Boy, yeah, that's a good reason to die on the street, isn't it? Because you didn't want to break with tradition. I look at it this way. It's like if you're an investor and you invest in various stocks and bonds and maybe gold and silver and whatever, copper, iron ore, whatever. One goes up, one goes down, but you're always kind of moving ahead. I'd say you're a smart investor. You've hedged your bets a little bit. BJJs to me is like that. It's just a perfect addition to any system. It's a great discipline within itself, but it's a great system to attach to your current stand-up style. Because if you won 50% of the time stand-up, and the other 50% of the time you end up finishing with chokes and arm bars, you'd say it was a worthwhile investment, wouldn't you? Because what would have happened the other time? Maybe you just get choked out yourself. The second thing that I call bullshit on is we don't spar because, and there's two answers to this. And the first one is because we're too deadly, it's too deadly. And I call bullshit on that because I want to know where the bodies are buried. If it's so deadly, there must be a trail of graves behind you. So I call bullshit on that. The other one is we don't spar because it's not realistic enough. Yeah, trust me, I've heard that. It's like going to the Olympics, boxing in the Olympics, and never sparring before you get there. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because it's not realistic enough. It's the closest thing you're going to get. You start to deal with some of the fears and anxieties. You might get tagged a little bit. It's exhausting. It's hard work. I make every one of my students spar for their gradings. They spar anyway, but I make white belt spar for their first stripes. I make white belt spar for their blue belt with a white stripe. Sometimes they do 10, 15 rounds, maybe more. We had a black belt recently just do over 20-man kumite, and he was sparring guys, literally, Bruno, big thumbs up to you. He was sparring guys with 15, 20, 25 years experience, even 30 years experience, and holding his own. Why? Because that's the culture we have, and no one was trying to kill him, no one was trying to hurt him, but they were all pressuring him all the time. And he was super fit and ready, and one of the strongest black belts we had for quite some time. That being said, I call bullshit on both those answers. If it's so deadly, where are the bodies? If it's not realistic enough, what are you doing? You know, so I look at that and I go, well, you're lying to your students, and you know, either you're an idiot who believes it, or you're just a liar, or both. And I think there's one really strong reason, I believe it motivates people to do this, instructors especially, because they got a bottom line. They got a bottom line, they got to pay the rent, they got to put food on the table, maybe you've got a young family, you know, I feel for you. I've been training in martial arts for 40 years, it's pretty much all I've ever done, so I know all about paying the rent, I know all about that. But you are really setting your students up to fail. And if you're doing it because you don't want to lose students, you don't want to make them claustrophobic because they'll grapple, you don't want to let them get tagged occasionally because you're scared they'll leave, then what do you really have? To me, it's fake. It's bullshit. You know, and I know it's tough. And I'll tell you something, right? When I brought BJJ onto the mat, and I have one of the greatest BJJ coaches, two actually, the greatest BJJ coaches, John Will and Anthony Lange, they got me through to black belt. And, you know, John Will's one of the Dirty Dozen under Higan Machado, pedigree to die for. And I'm a part of that, and I'm really grateful. But I knew within a few months this was going to hurt, because I saw people go, you know, no, that's too confronting, it's too hard. So you got to do it smart, you got to do it really, you got to ease it in, and you got to make it logical, and you've got to say the right things, and you've got to, you know, get people on board with it. So I know it can be tough, but if you make that decision, here we are over 20 years later, and all of our schools have a BJJ program. All of our schools, all the instructors can grapple, they can wrestle, you know? So it was worth it. Yeah, it hurt initially, but you get over that, and because it's real and it's necessary, you know, you weather that storm, and you say the right things, and you appeal to the logic of your students and the reality of what it is you're trying to do, and you forge forward from there. So guys, if you're an instructor saying, we don't go to the ground, we don't spar, we don't do this, we don't do that, because, I call bullshit on that, and so should you. And you know, they're either just being mercenary, or they don't have any skills and they don't want to admit it, or they're just lying for the sake of lying because it's too hard to go out and try something new, or they're just idiots. You know, your call on that, because it's your mat, so you have to figure that out for yourself. Good luck. If you're not on the right mat now, find the right mat. Okay, so if you're sick of being lied to, you're sick of the bullshit factor, subscribe to Redfern University, all right? And I'll show you how real Wing Chun works, because you have to train like an athlete. If you're going to train like a pansy, you're going to fight like a pansy, you know? I mean, you need to train hard, you need to understand physics, you need to understand logic, you need to understand strategies, you need to understand tactics. And if you really want to make it work, I'll show you how. All right, good luck, guys.